Number one, I am a rock rib conservative, unabashedly so. Many of you listen to the program know that. And when I talk about conservatism, do for self is as conservative as it comes. I'm a capitalist. I believe in the free enterprise system. I believe that people need to get paid. They call me get paid wage. I want everybody to eat. Everybody's got to eat. Now here's the deal. I invite your participation going forward. I want you to continue to watch CWU-TV and listen to the Kim Wade Show at WYAB 103.9 FM, WYAB.com, Monday through Fridays from 4 to 6. Continue to listen in, add your input, and see if we can be the example for all of America to point to and say, they're doing it right down in Jackson, Mississippi. Now there's a message in there for a believer. Welcome to Wade 2025 on CWU-TV on YouTube, CWU-TV Network on Facebook, CWU-TV on Rumble. You can call 601-397-6752 and add your nickels and dimes to the marketplace of ideals right here on CWU-TV here. Folks, this is it. This is Sunday. Well, better yet, I need to remind you, leave your comments, like and share, and subscribe to all our channels. That's YouTube, Rumble, and on Facebook. And speaking of that, folks, you may not have been able to pick up the Kim Wade Show on YouTube, Wade 2025, over the last couple of weeks. We had been in YouTube jail. That's right. They put handcuffs on the brother. And I ain't done nothing to nobody, but they thought otherwise. So they had a brother on a hiatus, but we're back live on YouTube. So you can go back and catch the previous shows that you missed. If the only way you have been looking at us, finding us is on YouTube, well, we got the old shows, I think there's 3 of them, that you can go back and check out, and I think you'll enjoy it. All right, folks, it is Sunday. We're glad to be back here on CWU-TV at 3, Wade 2025. You know, the topic today is, has Black America been poisoned? More poignantly, have we been street poisoned? Street poison is a term I first heard used by my oldest brother, Jack. And he talked about people being street poisoned by the streets. The young rappers talk about sometimes they may refer to a lady as she belongs to the streets. In other words, she don't belong to anybody, she belongs to everybody. And we have to be mindful of those things, that you can become a life in the gangs or whatever, and you'll get street poisoned by that lifestyle. And the question is, have we become street poisoned as a nation in general, and as black people in particular? I can certainly speak to the latter. As black people, yes, there's no question about it. It's become crystal clear to me over the last, several months now, that there is a invisible hand, if you will. It's not really invisible, because you can see the fingers. You can see the arm behind, and the wrist and arm behind the fingers. And the question is, how can we best articulate it where you can get your head around it and that you can see it? Here's what's going on. I want you to think about the recent events regarding the legislation that came out of the legislature this past, House Bill 1020, and all the various lawsuits that ensued from that. And now we got lawsuits regarding our water situation here in Jackson. And that was also the source of much controversy here in the state and drew international, not just national, international attention. As I mentioned to you, a friend of mine was way down in Australia. In fact, not just in Australia, on the other side of Australia. And when she mentioned that she was from Mississippi, they knew all about our story of woe, water, crime, streets, incompetency, the whole 9 yards. We weren't well known for what we do well. We're well known for what we didn't get right. That's got to end. We got to raise and be more conscious of our brand, but that's another show. Here's what's going on with the street poisoning aspect of our community. I'm seeing forces at work that's keeping us from addressing so many of the problems that face us. And not only that, we cannot make that down payment, that input that's necessary to secure our future for our kids, for ourselves, for our city, for our state. And I think it's time that somebody start calling out names, addresses, and phone numbers of the folks who are doing this. What do we have to lose? They've already set us on a course of total destruction. And this is not something that I'm interested in. So by that, I have every intention of exposing it, pointing it out, and calling it out. Now, they can do the same to me if they're unhappy with my commentary. I'll welcome the challenge. I'll welcome the debate. But convince me otherwise that this is not an orchestrated plan by people who've never had our best interests at heart. And so many of them have won our confidence by telling us that their every waking moment is spent worried about and concerned about and working on our behalf. And I would say to them now, stop. We can't afford you doing any more for us. So I'm just telling you now, when I say street poison, I'm talking about those individuals who continuously, and the pattern is clear and unbroken. It's like a color in a plaid. You've seen a plaid piece of material. That color that you see in there, sometimes it's bold, sometimes it's thin, but it's always present. And that's the way they're evil. That's what their harm has done to our community. Starting back during the Kirk Fordyce administration, as I recall, when I first started noticing this, I didn't put much stock in it, but I made a mental note, a sticky note on my brain, if you will. And at that time, there was an effort being made to merely apply the laws that were already on the books as it relates to people who receive government assistance. Doesn't say anything about color, but government assistance here in Mississippi. You have a higher duty, if you will, by virtue of the fact that you're on the public dole. Your fellow taxpayers, your fellow citizens are helping you in your hour of need, if you will. It was being requested via the legislation and the rules and statutes on the book that you make sure your kids are in school, that you couldn't have them just shooting hooky, tardy, basically being less than applying themselves to the task at hand, which is learning, getting the 3 hours under the belt. And so the Fordyce administration attempted to enforce that law. Oh, they caught all sorts of flack. Lawyers were parachuting onto the parking lot down at DHS and down at the governor's mansion to protest his heartless attempt to force these people to be accountable to themselves and to their own kids. Now, society would benefit if we had less juvenile delinquents, because it's the juvenile delinquents that they use as a statistical basis to go into federal court and say, we need this done and we need this changed and we need them to do this. And yet, the governor was attempting to eliminate and minimize the number of juvenile delinquents that they would have to work with, and they sprung the length of their chain to keep the hustle going. So now the question is, okay, how do we stop people like this here? Because that was just the first instance that I noticed that. And then when the governor just threw his hands up and didn't pursue that because of threat of lawsuits and the usual suspects jumping up and down and acting a fool, well, then they moved on to something else. But the damage continued to be done year after year after year. I remember sitting into visiting my grandson's first grade over at McLeod. And there was a young man, a young lady, rather, little girl, and we were in the lunchroom. It was grandparents' day. We were in the lunchroom and they were having lunch with the grandkids. And this little girl, she was just oblivious to everybody else around her. She was just eating and eating everything. She's eating like she's never eaten meals in a couple of days. Had a skull cap on because she had ringworm. And the teacher was giving me the backstory on a young lady. It's young ladies and young kids like that that need that law enforced. And her attendance record was spotty. It looked like her parent, mother or father, whoever was in charge, weren't interested in getting her to school on time or every day. And yet, these lawyers went into court to make sure that this young lady would not have anybody running interference on her behalf, making her parents do what they needed to do, or making the parents do what they needed to do. And you see, these are the people who were down there with their bar cards and law degrees saying they're doing what they're doing for us, but they destroyed that young lady's life or allowed it to be destroyed. And her future is not secure, and nor is the future of our community if we continue to add to it with young ladies like that and young kids like that. And we can do better, but for those individuals coming out with their bar card, pretending like they care, and nobody can challenge them. I'm going to give you a few more examples when we come back from the break. But folks, the pattern is clear and unbroken. And the question is, what are we going to do about it? But I'm going to give you some more examples when we come back why we've been street poisoned. Our community is being poisoned, not by racism, not by white privilege, not by institutional racism, genderism, or anything else. It's being poisoned by people who claim that they have our best interests at heart. You and I can see this for what it is, and we're going to call it out for what it is. So I invite you to participate with us if you like. You can give us a call, 601-397-6752. Add your nickels and dimes and comments to the Marketplace of Ideals. We'll be right back.
I am Chef Shishi, the owner of Just in Time, the featured chef of the JMMF Culinary Kitchen, where we prepare farm-to-fork centered, healthier, all-natural foods in the urban community.
Call in now at 601-397-6752. Call in now at 601-397-6752.
All right, folks, we're back. And welcome to Wade 2025 on CWU-TV on YouTube, CWU-TV Network on Facebook, CWU-TV on Rumble. You can also call in with your comments, 601-397-6752. Leave your comments, like, share, and subscribe to all our channels. And folks, if you want to catch the last three Wade 2025 shows from the past 3 weeks, they'll be on YouTube later on today, along with this one as a repeat. So folks, as a replay if you like, and we encourage you to pass it on to others. We were just talking about being street poison. Whether or not our community, whether or not our country is being street poison, yes it is. Some people will call it Marxism. I don't care whatever ism you put in front of it, it is destroying our future. And I would suggest, respectfully so, that we don't have to go along with this. We don't have to just allow these people to come in and say they're doing things on our behalf, and yet we're getting further and further from the shoreline. We're getting caught in this undertow of their indifference. But you got to understand, these lawyers are making money going into federal court doing the things that they're doing. Every time they sue us, they ask for attorney fees. We have to pay them to ruin our future. I would say to you that we've had enough of this here. I gave you the example about when I first noticed this street poisoning going on back during the Fordyce administration. I would also like to point out to you that here recently with the lawsuits against the state of Mississippi, the governor, the legislature, and everyone else for passing House Bill 1020, which was an attempt to alleviate the crime on the streets of Jackson and Hinds County, also the backlog of cases in the criminal justice system here in Hinds County. And in fact, if the truth be told, it was black elected officials who were asking for assistance of some type. Now, they didn't have a plan on their own. You would think they would sit down and study the problem and say, okay, this is what we need. They didn't even do that. But be that as it may, someone did step up and attempt to offer an alternative to alleviate the out-of-control crime, murder, just the general deterioration of the city. The government, the legislature rather, has offered money for infrastructure repair, water repairs, everything they could to help, and yet we keep biting this hand with an ungrateful spirit and attitude. I don't approve of that. I don't know how anyone who is a follower of Christ or just a good, decent person would go along with someone being so insolent and disrespectful and ungrateful for folks trying to help us in problems that we created. Whether or not the pipes were built 100 years ago or built yesterday, we're still responsible for it when we're in charge, and it's on our watch. Now, that being said, they filed lawsuits. The NAACP has filed a lawsuit, the ACLU, the Southern Poverty Law Center, the Center, MacArthur Center for Justice. Everybody's suing against House Bill 1020, trying to force the courts to say that the whole bill was unconstitutional. Certainly parts of it they're claiming. Now, I want you to think about it again. Once again, you got a group of lawyers. It seems to be predominantly white are the ones who were spearheading this thing. Not that their color has anything to do with it other than the fact that you notice it. When we were trying to save our kids via the enforcement of the truancy laws, et cetera, and withholding welfare largesse, if you will, from people who receive it if they didn't make sure their kids got to school. They didn't want that. Yet they've gotten a good education, they've gotten a law degree, their kids are getting a good education, but they use the law to prevent others from getting it. Under no circumstances should they be even involved with the denial of services to those kids, educational services to those kids. But again, they're only looking out for themselves in my estimation. And the pattern seems to be clear. Now with House Bill 1020, they go into federal court saying, do not give us more judges. In fact, strike the entire piece of legislation because we won't have the right to vote for these judges. Okay, an argument can be made for that. But judges being appointed is nothing new. They appoint special judges all the time. Well, Kim, these aren't special judges. There's a new district being made. Well, you know what? There's the law is always being applied in different ways at different times based on different needs. Now, the problem that I have with them going into federal court, or into any court for that matter, because they have a lawsuit also in state court, in chancery court, seeking the same thing. So they're attacking this bill from several different angles, several courts. Now, the problem that I'm having with all this is that when you sit back and think about it, while they bring their lawsuits, the crime is out of control in Hinds County and the city of Jackson. That crime affects our businesses. Our businesses can't generate tax revenues. The lack of tax revenues means that we can't provide the city and county services that we need. These lawyers act like there's no connection. They're singularly focused on making sure that the Democrat Party has enough votes on election day to maintain their control of the various offices that they control. There's no middle ground with these people. There's no, okay, well, I know there's businesses that want to stay in Jackson, but they're breaking under the weight of all this crime and break-in and folks terrorizing their customer base, people not feeling safe going to some of these businesses, and yet these lawyers don't care. And so I'm telling you that, wait a minute now, we need to talk. Now you going and supposedly going into court on our behalf, and we're telling you, hey, wait a minute, we do want this extra law enforcement from the CCID. We do want these extra judges to help move cases along. Well, they need to elect the judges. Okay, well, wait a minute. You're saying they need to elect the judges because you want them to be what, black judges? You're saying the Supreme Court won't appoint any black judges? Because we can certainly say that it's going to be highly unlikely that a white judge will get elected in Hinds County, and they know that. But that's what they want. And what the people want is relief from crime, period. And they don't care because they make money by going into federal court. I believe they get their attorney fees twice, or they get double. They get paid from the plaintiffs and then they get paid from the federal government. Anyway, it's a hustle. And it's a hustle at the expense, again, of our future. Now, after they get done killing the tax base, then they come back and file another lawsuit against the Department of Environmental Quality for not providing funds to the city of Jackson other than on a dollar matching basis. They're saying that the city of Jackson is a underserved, a poor community, poverty level rate and all that kind of stuff. In other words, they say we ain't got the money. Well, why don't we have the money? Because of the lawsuits that they're bringing that's killing our tax base. You see how they've got us in a cycle? I mean, they got us chasing our tail. And they're making money on every side. They'll bring a lawsuit if you don't give us enough money. They'll bring a lawsuit to keep us from making money, being able to pay for our own services. There's no way forward with these white legal groups from the East Coast and elsewhere coming in here suing supposedly on behalf of the poor black citizens of Jackson. And they've got a built-in cadre, a cabal of individuals ready to have their name put on a lawsuit that deteriorates the quality of life for every Jacksonian. And I'm telling you, we need to break this up at the door. You guys always talk all that black talk, how you the vanguard and how you the black caucus. Why can't you talk to these lawyers? Why can't you sit down and reason with them and say, look, we don't need you to go into court on this right now. But those lawyers talking about what their rights are as someone who has a bar card and they have a right to bring a lawsuit against whoever if they have the right plaintiffs. Hoss, I'm telling you, when do we become men and stand up and say, wait a minute? They did this crap up in Chicago when they were trying to have all male schools for the boys up to a certain age, and the same dang white lawyers in these ACLUs, Southern Poverty Law Center and elsewhere, NAACP Legal Defense Fund, which by the way, is ran by white lawyers. They came in and put a halt to that effort to educate our young black boys, and now look at Chicago now. That's been over 30 years ago. Folks, there is a pattern that's clear. Elijah Muhammad called them devils. I'll call them devils too. Not a devil, the devil. We'll be right back.
I am Chef Shishi, the owner of Just in Time, the featured chef of the JMMF Culinary Kitchen. Prepare farm-to-fork centered, healthier, all-natural foods in the urban community.
Call in now at 601-397-6752. Call in now at 601-397-6752.
All right, welcome to Wade 2025 on CWU-TV on YouTube, CWU-TV Network on Facebook, CWU-TV on Rumble. You can also call 601-397-6752. Leave your comments, like and share. Subscribe to all our channels. All right, folks, we're back for the final segment. Look, I cut the pie down the middle. My position is this here. We ain't got to walk around like we scared to say something. This is our future. These are our kids. This is our city. This is our community. And we're up here asking permission. Hey, would you consider, we really don't like all this crime. Well, but we got to have our voting rights. Well, wait a minute, Hoss. We got our voting rights. We need some immediate, we need some immediate relief now. We need the judges on duty right now. These people are going into court saying, don't let them do anything. Don't appoint any judges. Keep the status quo. Who wants the status quo? A few well-to-do lawyers. And you know what? As I was pointing out last week, I would say 8 out of 10 of these lawyers don't even live in Hinds County. But they make their money here, grinding on us, destroying our dreams, our hopes, as our property values continue to diminish. And they don't care. Because they'll just go back into court and say it's white racism is the reason why the rest of the state don't want to help us. But then the truth of the matter is we can't help ourselves because of them. We don't need friends like this. We need to be forthright. We need to get some bass in our voice. They need to smell our breath. We need to get right up in their face and say, look, Hoss, don't do it anymore. If I catch you down at that courthouse, found some papers on our behalf, I'm going to tell you now, I'm going to be extremely narrow-minded, and the fellowship is probably going to be heated. And I'm going to tell you now, you don't want any of this. This is not trying to be threatening, but they are threatening our livelihood. They're threatening our freedoms. They're threatening our future. There's no way we can turn when we wanted charter schools. Who jumped up providing lawsuits to try to stop it? Who got all their NGOs and their nonprofits to come in and bring in funds so people can wear T-shirts and signs and go down and protest it? It's always the same people. And it's always the same result, that our future is eclipsed by their actions while they tell us that they love us. It's like we can't process this. They're steadily stabbing us in the ribs with a steak knife and telling us that we love them. Telling us that they love us. And mentally we can't process. Wait a minute, they're killing us though. So I'm telling you, Hoss, this is what's going on. These people are not our friends. They don't need to be. And we don't have to be their enemy. We just don't have to be their patsies. We got to be minds. We got to be full-grown men. Look them in the eye and say enough of this bozo crap. But those blacks who have bar cards, why aren't you guys down there negotiating on our behalf? Why don't y'all say something? Some of y'all so thirsty, you just glad to get a job with the Southern Poverty Law Center because you can't make it out there as a practicing attorney. Now, I know, you know, when you first start out, you go places to get some experience, but some of y'all been there a long time. I ain't trying to throw shade, but what I'm saying is, dog, damn. What do we got to do to get a break around here? And this is the question I ask to all those white lawyers who are joining in this lawsuit from the SPLC, ACLU, NAACP Legal Defense Fund, MacArthur Foundation, and all that. Where were you? I'm like Drake and Future now. Where were you when the dogs needed help? When they were sitting down there in the county jail after having exhausted their life as a juvenile delinquent and committed some heinous crime, and now they're facing long time in federal pen or state pen, and all you lawyers ain't offering them no free legal services. But you all over them when they're young, using them as a statistical basis to go into federal court so you can feed your kids and keep your child in private school. Make it make sense, dog. See, y'all not used to somebody talking to you like this. Well, here I am. I don't have any portfolio other than the righteousness of what I'm saying. Not me, but the righteousness of the position. You shouldn't do this to our kids. And we don't, look, we're not negotiating on this here. You're going to have to, let me be clear about this here. You can continue on doing what you're doing. But these young kids, they jacking everybody. They putting on tools on everybody. They peeling caps back on everybody. They don't look at you. They beat Alvin Shambliss down as much as he did for education with his heirs lawsuit. They shot Huey Newton, the founder of the Black Panther Party. They put a bullet in that brother, a young brother. You ain't no different, and I ain't no different. But see, these boys are coming here and sue on our behalf and leave our community in shambles. We can't even, look, what is it? The Clark Bottling Company just spent it's about to spend $100 million building a new facility up in Madison County. Hinds County wasn't even under consideration. Jackson wasn't even under consideration for that distribution plant. All because of these lawyers and all because of these black politicians who won't do right by the kids and by the kids' future. And I'm saying, dog, somebody's got to say something. I'll say it. Send me. We've done enough of this bozo crap. It's time to stop. Derek Johnson, Ben Jealous, Benny, Chalk Lines, the Black Caucus on the state level and the federal level, y'all need to turn it up. You need to crank it up. You guys got to do better. And all that I'm saying and all that you've heard me say today is we got to start dealing with folks like men. Not walking around with our hat in our hand looking down at our shoe. So look, man, let me be clear. This lawsuit is not in the best interest of our community. Oh yeah, you got some great legal points, but we need you to stand down. So we at a point now, we can't even ask them to stand down. Who the hell are these people? Who gave them portfolio? And who's putting money in their wallet? And are they putting money in yours? These are real questions. Y'all up there eating steak, burping up Cristal, slamming Cadillac doors, and we out here eating beanie weenies, romaine noodles, picking up cans on the side of the road because we can't make it here in the city of Jackson because our tax base. Folks, if you live on a street right now, as I talk to you, and they don't come in and done some work on your street, dug it up for whatever reason, they put that gravel down there, do you know that they're not coming back? It's going to be like that. There's no money. And these lawyers are making sure that there won't be any money in the future. Our tax base is dwindling. Our tax income is dwindling because of these lawsuits. They are destroying the brand of Jackson, and they don't care. All they see is a way that they can make some money. Don't get me wrong, I understand. I'm self-employed. Aside from the radio show, I'm self-employed. And when you're self-employed, you wake up unemployed every day. So you got to make something happen. So I understand where the lawyers are coming from, but I'm telling you, you can't be grinding on my leg like this no more, dog. You have to find another way. Because you're telling me I got to find another way. These same lawyers will tell you, and these same black politicians will tell you, we don't want a regional water supply. They're trying to take over Jackson. Man, don't nobody want a city full of twerking fools. We need to expand the number of ratepayers who use the system that provides water for the city of Jackson so we can spread out the cost. Because we don't have enough businesses and enough households or rooftops to sustain the present system. And they trying to walk around with their chest all pumped out. Oh yeah, we got to keep this all black. Man, you can pound sand with that foolishness. I want as many folks that we can get to help tote the cost of this water system. But yet they got their own personal parochial interests that they're ready to bring a lawsuit to keep that from happening. And yet they're mismanaging the system where we shouldn't even be in a position where we got to be asking anybody for it, but for these lawyers and these black politicians working together. So that's what I was telling you about on the previous shows. We need to really closely examine the relationship these people have with those folks and the relationship we have with these folks. Because at the end of the day, this ain't working. We've gone as far as we can go in the direction we're headed. We need to change course. And I'm going to break it up at the door. No more business as usual. Look, if you're marching for your rights, if you're transitioning from one gender to another, I'm not your mayor. I'm not your mayoral candidate. But if you want this BS broke up at the door, I'm your huckleberry. I promise you. No other surety you have other than God's word itself, that I will break this up at the door. So again, remember, you can find us on CWU-TV on YouTube, CWU-TV Network on Facebook, and CWU-TV on Rumble. See you next week. Unabashedly so. Many of you listen to the program know that. And when I talk about conservatism, do for self is as conservative as it comes. I'm a capitalist. I believe in the free enterprise system. I believe that people need to get paid. They call me get paid Wade. I want everybody to eat. Everybody's got to eat. Now here's the deal. I invite your participation going forward. I want you to continue to watch CWU-TV and listen to the Kim Wade Show at WYAB 103.9 FM, WYAB.com, Monday through Fridays from 4 to 6. Continue to listen in, add your input, and see if we can't be the example for all of America to point to and say, they're doing it right down in Jackson, Mississippi. Now there's a message in there for a believer.